I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Boothbay Board of Selectmen to order. First, I ask that we stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda this evening, we have a Wards and Weirs application. It's for Donald and Catherine McFarland, map U7, lot 2B, located at 40 Hiawatha Trail in East Boothbay. It's to construct a pile-supported pier system, including a 5-foot by 70-foot wooden pier, a 3-foot by 40-foot seasonal aluminum ramp, and a 16-foot by 20-foot seasonal wooden float in Little River. Jim.
The application has been received, and there was the first section of this on-site hearing, or this hearing done on-site on March 29th. If you look at the included in your packets, Pete's put together his recommendation, is which on-site there was Brad McFarland, Steve Ham, Gary and Elaine Neville, and himself. They didn't see any reason to stand in the way of this permit, so he approves or recommends approval.
Steve?
I would recommend that we approve. I was actually surprised that there was a pocket of water in the middle of they're going to have about 3 feet of water at low tide.
Oh.
And I remember going there as picnics when I was a kid. It seemed like the mud went forever. There's more water than it's else. I move the approval. There's no issue.
Seconded. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Wards and Weirs application for Donald and Catherine McFarland. Questions or comments? Being none, all those in favor? Motion passes. Next we have public comment. Okay. Next we have approval of minutes of the previous meeting from March 25th, 2013.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any comments or corrections? Being none, all those in favor? Motion passes.
I recommend that we move new business up in front of reports.
Okay. New business. Repurchase agreements.
In your packets, way in the back, there are several repurchase agreements that I'd like to get permission from the selectmen to enter into. The first one is for, I'm not sure if they're first in your information. First one is for 41 Pleasant Cove Road, which was annotated on our tax sale list, but we've come to terms with the former property owner as described in the repurchase agreement. So I recommend that we enter into that repurchase agreement. Additionally, and I'll solicit one motion for all of them. So a second one, this one is for sorry, I don't have the account number right on here. But it's map R06, lot 50B01. Once again, we've come to terms with the former property owner, and we recommend that you give permission to enter into this repurchase agreement. Additionally, while we're on the topic, also in your packets, way out of order, is the tax sale ad. And you'll see I've made some adjustments. So everything that we've lined out, we've come to some sort of agreement with the former property owner, and we'd like to take those off the tax sale list. So that's 4 of the properties. And I'm pretty sure by the time we meet next meeting that we'll have the rest X-1. So really we'll go to tax sale with 1 property, which is a success as far as the town's considered, even though we won't make any money. But that's a success, so we put the properties back in the previous property owner's hands, and that for the people that watch Channel 7 and that stay tuned with the register, that the town is generally pretty easy to work with. You come in and make it known that you're having an issue with these taxes, that we'll find a way. So far, every repurchase agreement that we've entered into has come to fruition. The only one that we have outstanding is a lengthy one that is on track to be paid off in June. So these have been very successful for the town, and I recommend that we enter into these agreements.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to have the town enter into repurchase agreements for map R6 lot 62B and map R6 lot 50-B01.
Second?
Aren't you looking for the other two too?
Not yet,
Oh, okay.
shortly.
Just the two that he's written out.
Okay.
Yep.
Comments? All those in favor? Motion passes. Next under new business, quitclaim deed.
Going back through and cleaning up some of our records, the quitclaim deed that I put in your packets for 28 Knickerbocker Road. This property owner has paid their taxes and at some point in time had a lien recorded. When they paid their taxes, we should have released that lien. Now that the lien is old enough, it is technically foreclosed, but they paid their taxes. So instead of just releasing the deed with a simple form that we normally do, we actually have to go through the full process of a quitclaim deed. And this is an error on the town's part, but we'd like to rectify it with this quitclaim deed.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded to sign the quitclaim deed for 28 Knickerbocker Road. Questions? Being none, all those in favor? Motion passes.
This is the original copy, if we can.
All right, back up to reports.
Okay, first under reports, the St. Andrews Task Force, which we've been reported on at every single selectmen's meeting since July of last year. The task force met, I'm blending my dates now, just
Last
recently. And they have discussed that they're probably coming to the end of their efforts. Want to pass the torch on to some of the spin-off entities that have taken under some of the tasks that the task force originally started to do. But the task force wants to do this in a proper manner and document the way that they have been issued a task, what they have produced for results, and what they recommend for future results. We're working on that right now. It may take a meeting or two to do that, but at the same time we also have the referendum question that's going to come before the voters on May 6th. Chuck is the chair. Would you like to add anything?
One of the entities that Jim has mentioned is, and I hope I get this right, it's the Boothbay Region Health and Wellness Foundation. And they are getting themselves organized. They're going to be incorporated, and they're working on their tax exempt status, 401c3 status.
501c3, yeah.
501c3. So that they can accept donations, tax deductible. This coming Wednesday in Augusta, folks are going up to testify in front of the legislature for Bruce McDonald's hospital district proposal to see if that can get past committee and get to the full legislature itself. I know they're going to utilize the old animal hospital property as parking, and they talked about busing people up there to go to the hearings. So it sounds like there could be quite a large turnout.
Good.
I'm preparing testimony for Representative McDonald's bill. I think that even if the district is formed and it never takes the place of as being a hospital for the town, it sounds a resounding message about transparency.
Yes, and it's my understanding that not only are folks from the task force going up, but it's also my understanding that Clinton County Health is also sending somebody up there to testify. Now, it's, from what I've heard, they're not going to testify for or against, but it'd be interesting to hear what they have to say.
Is that, do you know if that's streamed on the internet? I know the full legislature is, but is the hearings?
On time 181 or
I'm talking on the
182,
internet.
that I don't know.
I mean, the State House, you used to be able to go on and actually watch them when they're in session, but I didn't know about the hearings if they were or not.
I know PBS has started taping them to show on one of their channels, that's why it's either 181 or 182 on Time Warner. And there's hope that they'll show this one as well.
And I'm not sure committee meetings are, you know, they may or may not be, and I can understand if they don't. There's probably a ton of committee meetings that are of interest and some that are of little interest.
I know it's painful to watch when they're in the House. I mean, it's just mumbo jumbo. I mean, unless you're, I guess you're, it must take a year or two if you're a House rep to understand the jumbo that they say, because they talk so dang quick that you don't understand what they're talking about. It's awful.
The testifying in front of the committees is a little different than at the regular legislature. That is complete mumbo jumbo. Even if you watch it on C-SPAN, it's worse than Washington. But I know Bruce had said something about the time was changed to 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
I was talking to Mike Pander this morning. He said it was printed in the Portland Press Herald at 1.
Yeah, I think their actual formal session starts at 1, but I think they'll probably wait on testimony for when Bruce gets there, which I think he has some conflict. So I think that's why he stated 2.
Okay.
Because I looked it up and it does say 1. One thing that we're trying to do as the town of Boothbay to be supportive of the bill is lots of people plan on going to testify. We've distributed some pamphlets on how to testify before Congress, giving people information about the bill. And so if anybody needs that information, especially since we're talking about the 11th hour now, come by the town office, we can show you where to get that.
And Jim also mentioned that we're talking about wrapping up the task force portion of what's going on. We're going to start talking about that at our next meeting on the 16th.
Right. You know, and as so the hospital will probably, the ER will probably not be there October 2nd, but I don't think anybody in the task force thinks that the task force job fell short. I think they felt like they really did get some at-bats, got a few hits, and did a lot of things, and we're trying to wrap those up so that someday, 10, 15, 25 years from now, when people look back on this, we'll have produced a document that says what we did.
All right.
The Comprehensive Planning Committee continues to meet on the opposite Mondays of the Selectmen. Once again, I've tried to give you snippets of the work that they're doing. In your packets, you'll see that there's an economic profile put together. This was done by Mark Ironman and Plan of Decisions, and yes, as we produce these things, we find errors and things that aren't correct. But it does give us a really neat snapshot so that when we get to the comprehensive plan, hopefully next May, that we'll have seen some of this trickle in and the selectmen will be familiar with the work that they're doing. I thought it was really interesting looking at the economic profile is that we talk about a lot of these things that are identified in this as commonplace, but we don't ever put numbers to them. And if you look at table D6 about the commuting patterns of Boothbay, it really sums up what a lot of people already know. That there's lots of people that are leaving the peninsula to go to work. There's lots of people coming on the peninsula to go to work. And there are very few people that work and live on the peninsula. How do we change that? I'm not sure the Comprehensive Planning Committee will come up with that, a way to change that. But the more we identify that maybe is an issue that we'd like to identify in the future, we're going to get closer. So I just give this to the selectmen to be aware of. Chuck, you're also the chair of the Comprehensive Planning Committee. Would you like to add anything?
Well, one of the things that we did talk about with that table that Jim just mentioned is where it talks about living in Boothbay and working elsewhere. There's a lot of folks that live in Boothbay and work in the harbor, right? So they're still working on the peninsula, but it is considered elsewhere. Mark has been a great asset to the comp plan committees. I know the subcommittees are working on things diligently. The business subcommittee is looking to meet, is it Monday or Tuesday next week?
I saw the email fly through and I don't honestly know off the top of my head. But as Chuck's talking about this, they've put together several subcommittees, and those subcommittees are working on their own outside of the parameters of having to meet in these small rooms and talk things over. And some of them are being very aggressive, going out and figuring out data and information that they'd like to know to be included in the comp plan.
The data that they're bringing in is great.
Good. I think the town may not recognize it on June 1st of 2014, but years to come, we'll recognize this as a focal point.
Yeah, we have had some folks show up to listen and add their support to what's going on with the comp plan, but there isn't a whole lot from the public coming in. We'd like to see some more.
Chuck, one thing I might add to that is, we, Wednesday night, the industrial park committee meets, and we're actually meeting with John Ziegler and Chris Higgins about the possibility of water and sewer going up that way. I mean, that, I think it's safe to say that that's a primary goal of us right now. I mean, in order to attract business, you have to be able to support business. So, I mean, I mention this because I don't know if it interests you coming Wednesday night to hear what they've got to say. I mean, that's totally up to you. I'm saying that, but you're the chairman, I didn't know, but you may want to come.
If I can't, I'll check in with you and see.
When we started along the path of the comprehensive planning committee, we knew that the industrial park was something that we didn't have a plan for, but should be planned, and that's why we kind of created the two groups. And I really envisioned them coming together at some point in time.
Yeah. If you didn't know, both John and Chris are on the comp plan.
Yes.
Right. We just applied for, or we're finishing up the application for some assistance for Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. Hopefully we can get some planning assistance, and we've applied specifically for the Industrial Park Planning Committee.
Yeah, I would say not only is it a goal of the Industrial Park Committee to get water and sewer up there, but it's a goal of the Board of Selectmen as well.
Right.
Finally get up
I
there.
mean, I think that it was sold wrong the last time that it was put to the people. I think that doing it correctly with the proper grant money and stuff, I think that it's a no-brainer. I mean, I firmly think that we ought to go up at least the top of the hill. When I say top of the hill, at 27. You know, you go up beyond Rennie's, somewhere of Rennie's stockpile there. And,
Up Hardwick Road.
yeah. And that's my my personal feeling. I mean, granted, the industrial park will get us where we really need to be. If we want to go back to your tables and be able to create jobs in Boothbay to keep people in Boothbay, that's the place that it's going to happen. So in order for that to happen, no big business is going to come in without town water and sewer.
Just to add to that, back about, I say it was 7 or 8 years ago, we went through a situation where we had a business there by the name of Rhinell. They needed water, they wanted to expand, they couldn't get the water for whatever reason, and they left. And you know, if you watch the news and the media, what you'll see right now is they're running in Wisconsin. I want to say there's 60, 65 employees running 7 days a week, bought out by their parent company, Molineque, who has now set up, just put up a facility, Brunswick Naval Air Station, currently looking to hire 45 people. And you know, that's a major loss to this community. It's a major loss. It should never have happened. Whatever we have to do to try to ensure that that doesn't happen again, I really feel strongly we have to all work together to make that happen. Number two, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it just came out last week, Biovation building is for sale now. Not a good sign. That's a company on the brink right now of going with many, many different products, great opportunities. If you haven't been there, you should take a walk through and talk with Bob Hamlin and some of the other people there. What they will tell you about what they're doing is just incredible. Everything is green over there.
So why are they selling, do you know?
Of all the details.
Yeah, we've talked to Karem, the CEO of Biovation, and it's cash flow. Really, they're intent on staying there, but they need to kind of turn the building into a lease opportunity instead of an ownership opportunity. So I don't think they have any immediate intentions of leaving. They're just trying to create opportunity.
I think it's the future of this community, part of it.
I think the 27 corridor is. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's why if you get it up past the roadway, to the AG, the campground, I mean, you're serving all the businesses up through there. I think it's a win-win. And I mean, I don't know all the history. I remember vaguely of the failed septic systems up along 27, you know, and the town going in. I mean, you probably remember them better than I do. You was involved in town politics, but that wouldn't happen anymore if you have town sewer.
Well, actually, that was before my time with politics. and all that.
Right, I knew it was a long time ago, but
That would get us by the public water.
yes.
But you also need to watch what your definition of the Route 27 corridor is too, because once you get up above Hardwick Road, the people up there consider it more residential than commercial.
Right, right. And I understand that. I'm basically picking on, when I say that, I mean basically the Rennies. I mean, after Rennies, there is no business to speak of. I mean, you got a little coffee shop, restaurant there, but I mean, there's no big commercial business.
Yeah, you've got Boothbay Home Builders, you've got the carpenters.
Yeah, but them kind of places there's no potential for industrial like there is, you know, I mean.
They all have to have a storage system. That's the big
Right, if you're
plus
gonna have that kind
for
of employees, you're gonna have a place to,
Yeah.
you have a lot of waste.
I mean, ultimately, I think you go right down the River Road,
I think,
but it's baby steps, I think.
Well, if you're looking to get that, right now, the C1, C2 line is Hardwick Road. It used to be River Road, but the folks on top of the hill decided they didn't want to be part of the C2 district, and the line was moved to Hardwick. Little history lesson for you there, too.
but once it's at the top of the hill, it would be easy to go.
Yes.
in.
Right.
Both
Once you get up that hill, there's gonna be.
Both directions would be easy to go. Yeah.
So that's what, I mean, that's where we're kind of funneling right now. I just wanted to make you aware of it.
With our engineering partner, we've done cost estimates all the way to River Road. So we're prepared if we ever have to start designing that far, that we could.
I was just surprised at the price. I thought, I mean, the price that you had given, I guess, Mike, in 2011, I expect, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like $5 million is small potatoes, but for a project like that, it is. You know, I expected it to be more than that, that's all. You know, and maybe I don't know anything about, it's the digging that does it. Here's Mr. Professional at digging and laying pipe.
I'm not professional,
You're
I
digging
play on
into
the-
blasting.
But that, just to me, with paving, the cost of paving the way it is and stuff, that just seems low to me, but maybe.
And what was the estimate for? You're talking going from where our main ends now, up to River Road and Industrial Park, all in one foul shot?
Right. And that may not be what we bring to the people. As
Right,
a,
I suspect that's gonna be a phased
Right.
project.
But $5 million, like, does that sound that bad to you to do what you just said?
You gotta figure, asphalt's a 30-year project. Mobilization, which is one of the things, if you're doing it as one foul shot, once they're here, and they're just here until they leave. Bringing things in and pulling them back out again as a phased project, that actually kind of, in some ways, adds money, but it also takes away. But yeah, I mean, I think $5 million is a pretty, East Boothbay, the project we did over there was estimated at 2.4 million. So that's.
Well, thinking back to the last time we looked at this, I thought we were right around that number to get it up to and into the industrial park. To go to the River Road would cost us a lot more.
to go to the
There were
river.
2 phases in the original.
I think that's 3, wasn't it?
It was 3.
Yeah.
Went to the industrial park, then to River Road eventually, then up into the industrial
Right.
park.
And when we bring it to the people again, we'll probably have to think about what those phases, how they make sense.
I think a lot of it has to do with what we get for granted.
Right.
I mean, if you can go out and fund 4/5 of that project by grant money, and probably that's wishful thinking that high, but if you could, I mean, it's a lot easier to sell than if you're only funding it by 40 or 50%.
Yeah, grant money would be the key,
Yes.
especially in this economy.
And that's why John and Chris, they're the trained professionals for that kind of stuff, so.
But if you take the 2007 that they brought to the people, it was really just the cost share that is what scared people.
Yes.
We've redone
The way it was
math
funded.
to figure out what it would have looked like had you shared that with like a 30-year bond across the tax levy. And if you do it in that method, it's about a penny on the mill rate. And if you created a couple $1 million worth of value along that corridor, it would offset the penny. So it has a ton of potential. We just need to get it back to the point we had it in 2007, which is a little harder because we just looked at the economic profile. Well, that's happening in the rest of the country.
Right.
So
All right.
move on. We went over the tax sale bid. And then this is a quick report. In your packets is the annual report that we get in conjunction with our franchise fees through Time Warner. Everybody seemed to appreciate that last time when we put in all the information from the selectmen. Next is the Back Narrows Culvert project, which we've talked a lot and haven't really gotten anywhere with. But obviously we got the grant from NOAA to develop the engineering of that culvert, which is has gone very well. Wright Pierce has put together a pretty nice engineering spec for the project, and now we're trying to get construction funding for this next year. But in the meantime, through sequester and closure of federal funding, NOAA's not sure we can get that construction funding. But we have a fallback option. I mean, this was originally a culvert replacement that turned into redesign of the property. We can always fall back on our culvert replacement, and really there's no lost potential. We've got a lot of engineering that could be applied towards construction funding of a very elaborate, a very elaborate culvert that would allow some vegetation, or whatever the word is that I'm looking for, of smelt in that area, but it may not pan out. But we tried our best to make it happen. We're going to see what happens with NOAA.
What's the cost of the project?
The cost of the project is that what's kind of getting NOAA. It's about $140,000 right now. So they're trying to find ways where we can cut back to make it more appealing. We're doing those things, but at some point in time, we're going to get to our breaking point too, where it doesn't make any sense for the town. So we're still kind of negotiating.
No matter what we do over there, though, we need to make sure that we alleviate the situation that makes up every year.
Well, that's what we keep talking about, and honestly, the property owners that are there have been extremely patient with us. They see that we have the ability to stretch us into this major project, and they'd like to see us pull it off, but we've assured them that if we fall back on our old option, that it'll still be better than what they have.
So they're keeping in the loop then?
Yes. Yep. The next thing under reports is MMA is looking for executive committee nominations. The past 2 years that I've been here, the board has nominated me for MMA executive committee.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah.
Motion's made and seconded to nominate Jim Chaosis for the MMA Executive Committee. Do you accept?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, well, you need to promise if you get on there that you'll ask them to change their voting methods then.
I will. I promise.
Ask.
You just guarantee you won't get elected.
Just don't let them see Channel 7.
And if I do get appointed to the MMA Executive Committee, I'll probably step away from my role in Maine Town and City Managers Association. Last year at this time when you guys nominated me, I had so many things on the plate that I didn't even put in the paperwork. We kind of pulled it back at the last minute. This year, I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel on some of our projects. I like that light, so we'll head towards it.
Oh, we can find you more.
Oh, I'm sure.
All those in favor? Motion passes.
Good luck, gentlemen. The annual town meeting warrant is about to be posted this week. It'll be in the register Thursday edition. In your packets is the official ballot, or a copy of the official ballot that'll be submitted. All races are uncontested, as we already knew, but I wanted to give you guys an example of what's going to be there. Just like last year at the town office in the front, there's a binder. It says annual town meeting. This year it says 2013. Last year it said 2012. It has all the associated information that goes with the town meeting for people that want to educate themselves on the questions before they get there. Like the Boothbay Region Ambulance Service budget, our budget. There aren't any ordinance changes in this annual town meeting warrant, and that's why we put it out last year. But we encourage people, if you come into the office looking for this information, that we'll make copies available for free. We really want educated people at the annual town meeting, educated on the topics. Reports will go out shortly, and those will be available 2 weeks before the annual town meeting. Department heads, we had a department head meeting today. We're coordinating the 3rd safety audit this year, that's been really successful. We try to get a new member of our team involved in the safety audit each time we do a safety audit, so that eventually we'll all be bored with it, and that safety will become just something that we, once upon a time had a problem with. In Public Works, they've pretty much got all of the plows put away. They're painting, knocking the rust off, making sure that when they come back to them come November, December, that they're in good condition.
Where are we with floats?
Floats, all floats have been repaired. Most floats have been staged. Murray Hill is the big one we put in last, but it's ready to go. But the ones in the working areas, such as Knickerbocker, have already been placed.
Hey Jim, who does the sides of the road?
Sweeping?
Picking up litter.
Who does it on purpose? Nobody does it on purpose. We try to coordinate when there's really messes. We have Public Works attend to it. We've got some offers for volunteer work this year, and that's where we're going to use it. But honestly, we can always use assistance with roadside cleanup.
How come we don't get the, jeez, I gotta be careful I don't offend anybody, the 2 bridges.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the inmates to come out and do it. I mean, that'd be a perfect job. I think you have to feed them lunch.
We already do.
Well, I know, but you actually have to feed them when they're here. I remember when we had them painting and stuff before, you had to feed them lunch. But that's a small price to pay if we can get them to clean. I mean, because it's, now that the snow's going away, there's areas, I mean, the dump road for one is a mess.
It starts to become glaringly obvious
Yes.
once the snow's gone. We do have some offers for volunteer work, and we plan on using them in that capacity, but we're obviously not going to get all the roads done. We'll get the worst areas done. So we'll look into getting the two bridges.
I think the work details from 2 bridges are underutilized.
I agree.
We'll look into that. That was next on our Public Works reports as they get ready to do sweeping. Sweeping will probably happen next week, but they wanted to get the plows put up first. Right after sweeping happens, then we'll start doing lining, and it starting to look like a town again. Code enforcement is starting to come up to speed. They have 3 wars and weirs imminent, one of which we just addressed today. But they're starting to see business pick up. But we're more than prepared for that pickup. Unlike last year, we were had a little bit of a skeleton crew. This year we'll have full service code enforcement, and I actually look forward to it. We want the businesses to challenge us and push us as hard as they can.
So we're not using art at all anymore then?
We will bring Art back for a day a week this summer. We're bringing him back kind of out of an obligation. The work that he did with us last year was so appreciated that we committed to him a little bit more work this year. I have got a special project that I plan on working on, something that's kind of fallen by the wayside this year. We're going to do a full inventory of the watershed area for not only septic areas but for fuel. And then once we have that database, it'll be pretty easy to update it annually.
Did you say fuel?
Heat and fuel, propane. Right.
Gasoline.
That's what I was thinking of. Yes, diesel.
Part of our agreement with the water district for maintaining that area is that we said we would create a database and maintain the database.
So are they kicking in some of the cost of code?
Is the water district? Yes.
Okay.
They're paying half the cost of
That's right. Okay.
a code enforcement officer, which is above and beyond what Art's total cost is going to be. So
That was my only concern, is, I mean, if there wasn't to pay someone else to come in and do that, would make no sense.
no. Also that it was in the paper just recently about some very informal discussions that we've had with Edgecombe about taking on some code enforcement. Art gives us that flexibility. Honestly, if we could find more work, we would repurpose Art up there.
Yeah, but that wouldn't mean we'd keep him on year round.
What's that?
That wouldn't mean that we'd keep him on year round.
No, and I don't think Edgecombe's looking for a full-time code enforcement officer. I think they're looking for plug-in hours.
Yeah, they only pay, what, $7,000 a year?
Right. For every hour that we take away from our guys, we have to make it up somehow. We don't mind, honestly, if they need $5,000 worth of code work and we employ Art for $5,000 and it just goes up there, as long as it builds good relations between the town of Boothbay and Edgecombe, that's fine with us.
But with 2 full-time code officers now, which we have, they couldn't handle it?
You know, we have 2 people that are fully certified as code enforcement.
Basically, you have 1.5 because Lori is also your staff support for the assessor.
Right, but that being said, if it came time for going with Edgecombe, wouldn't it be cheaper to hire another lorry than it would be to hire Art, subcontracting at $25, $30 an hour, whatever we're paying him?
I think we can do, I mean, honestly, we haven't looked at their building permits at Edgecombe yet, but I think we can do Edgecombe without increasing staff. Really bringing Art back this summer is an obligation that we made last year.
No, but from, let's say the summer after that, I mean, you're gonna need Art to cover Edgecombe.
No.
Okay.
If we had to bring somebody back so that we could cover the
Exactly.
town, it wouldn't make any sense at all.
Nope. We're bringing Art back out of an obligation for really some amazing work that he did last year. He's kind of on the cusp of retirement. He thinks he's retired. And you know, we have a need still in code enforcement, so we're kind of taking care of 2 things at the same time. And we're still doing code enforcement for 65% of what we paid for it last year. So we're still saving hand over fist.
If Art was really retired, what he should be doing is teaching the classes for future CEOs, because the man has a vast amount of knowledge.
Is he MUBEC certified?
I think he is MUBEC certified, which is next on my list. There are 2 impending laws. I think one just got shot down at committee level about MUBEC, and MUBEC is the main building code. I forget the actual acronym. One of the laws is to change the 4,000 population that applies to MUBEC to 2,000, which would obviously include Boothbay. I'm not sure where that law will go. If it is adopted, we'll probably have a grace period for getting MUBEC certified code enforcement officers, but we're not going to wait for that. We're just going to get our code officers certified for MUBEC now. I'm pretty sure that within the next year we'll have 2 fully certified MUBEC inspectors as well. There's another competing law which would, I think, is suggesting that the towns could have the local vote on whether they wanted to adopt MUBEC, and if you didn't adopt it, then you don't have to apply it. I think that just got defeated at committee.
Now, didn't our neighbors, the harbor, I think they are MUBEC. They passed the Uniform Building Code.
They have adopted MUBEC. And as of right now, I don't think they have a MUBEC inspector. But when we have 2 MUBEC inspectors, we'll allow them to go down there for compensation. In assessing, right now, probably the biggest thing is they're doing seasonal work, going out and doing their updates, and probably most of the work has been involved with the TIF, Washburn and Dowdy and Hodgson Yachts. Our assessors have been pretty proactive in contacting their businesses to set up inventory of all their personal properties so they could submit it to the Betty Better program, and then also have that information for TIF management. So last I heard with Mike that's going pretty well. So whereas the TIF may have been a management nightmare in years past and years future, it looks like it's going to be pretty easy to manage. I put this under reports, but it's not necessarily reports. We were just looking for a place to slide it in. In front of you is a letter from the Board of Appeals. I think we gave you a draft copy of this letter probably about when they wrote it, but it took a little while to get all the signatures applied. The Board of Appeals felt very passionately about writing the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board about what they encountered with the Stimpson appeal, so that the Board of Selectmen would know how to act in the future. I don't think I have to read it to point out the things that they've come on to. Things that we've also talked about in meetings here about redundancies in ordinance and about how some things could be eliminated in our code. Also in front of you is the signed petition from David Stimpson, who he submitted it maybe late morning, early afternoon. So the petition has been received. We've counted the votes. He does, I think it was, I wrote it on the inside of there, does have sufficient amount of signatures from registered voters in the town of Boothbay to submit the petition. So I just recommend to the selectmen that we receive it now. We'll have legal counsel review it, and depending on legal counsel's recommendations, bring it to the planning board for further review.
Works for me.
Yeah.
So once again, your obligation is action within 60 days. That's all I have for reports.
Questions? Old business, internal control policies.
Made a slight adjustment to the internal control policies that you guys adopted last meeting. I wanted to get a signed version, so I put this on the agenda tonight. Under functions of the Board of Selectmen, added in the sentence, duties of the Board of Selectmen as are prescribed by Maine Revised Statutes annotated Title 30A. And then the rest of the language is all the same.
So you're looking for a motion to approve this? We
Actually,
just did it, yeah.
meeting.
You approved it already. I need a signature, so
Oh, okay.
I don't think you necessarily need a motion. I can
No,
print it from
we
you.
actually did.
Yeah, you made the motion to approve it with the addition.
Want me to move on to next?
Yeah, do you have the copy you want to sign?
Jim, who's that?
All right, 327 sidewalk project.
In your packet is a lot of correspondence. Correspondence from DOT to Robert Mitchell and Jimmy Hanna, correspondence from DOT to us in regards to the Route 27 sidewalk project. We submitted a letter in support of the flush sidewalk in front of Jimmy Hanna and Mr. Mitchell's businesses. And with that support letter and the complaints letter that MDOT got, they felt like that was the sufficient squeaky wheel and have given us a design exemption for a flush sidewalk there. With that ironed out, also in front of us becomes the time where we would enter into the modification number 2 of our project agreement to deliver the sidewalk project. And just before I entered into this contract, I wanted to make sure that we were still inclined to pull off this project. I also gave the same, I gave the project agreement to Boothbay Harbor. Hopefully they'll discuss it tonight. If not, I'll go to a Boothbay Harbor Selectmen's meeting and see if they can address it at some point in time. So really, we're in the biennium budget to pull off this project. We've ironed out some of the issues that we have through engineering. We just want to see if we're still committed to the project.
I can tell you, I know there was one letter in here that you'd given us in the packet from a resident, but I'm starting to hear more and more people say, why? And that seems to be growing quite a bit, as to why we're putting any money and time into a sidewalk coming up from Boothbay Harbor, especially on that side of the road, considering how busy Route 27 is.
I don't know, it's kind of that, that's why you want a sidewalk. I mean, I really haven't heard anything other than the letter I just read that we have in the packet. I haven't heard anything negative about it. But I'm not saying that they don't exist by no means, but I personally, wouldn't that make sense to have a raised sidewalk up along 27 though? I mean, you would sort of deter cars, you know what I mean?
Years ago, and I'm sure the Historical Society has the pictures of it, there used to be a sidewalk on this side of 27, all the way down to the harbor. There wasn't one over on the east side of the road. And I still have my biggest concern about the fact that it is coming up on the east side of the road and you have to cross here at the center.
I agree, but was it poles were the reason why they couldn't go on the
It's
other side?
utilities.
Yeah, you couldn't have an existing you couldn't have a sidewalk with there's an existing overhead utility.
Where's your water come from? What side?
It's up the same side as the telephone poles, primarily. Actually, out here, comes diagonally across the culvert.
And that's
But I mean, coming up 27 is on the same, so it does make sense structurally to put it on the other side of the road. I won't deny that, but
But I think sewer's on the other side, isn't it, Jim?
no, sewer and water are on the same side.
They're on the
On the
same-
west side,
Then where were the sewer district's concerns? Were they covering their?
The sewer district's original concerns were that where the granite curb would be was in a lot of places right over where their sewer main is, and they're afraid that if they had to address a sewer leak, they'd have to pull out granite, and then they'd have to replace granite because they'd most likely break it. We think we've mitigated that concern. Originally, when we put the preliminary engineering design together, we were constrained by the right-of-way, and now the entire project had to be within the right-of-way of MDOT, which meant the back slope has to be within the right-of-way of MDOT. Since then, MDOT said that they would pay their share of easements to make sure that we get grading easements so that we can work outside of the right-of-way. You'd have to get minimally cost easements, and they're going to pay 80% of that cost. Well, at that point in time, it really negates the cost of putting in retaining walls, so we were able to push the sidewalk a little bit further. We think once we get that drawn up, that we can bring that to the sewer district, and that will be enough for them to support the project.
Because the way I read the article in the Register, it sounded like that the sidewalk was going to be right on top of their line, and that's what their concern was.
Oh, that's an article in the Register. And it's not the design. I mean, the design in places fluxes in and out. At some points in time, the granite was over the sewer main.
Okay.
But I mean, you think about it. If you naturally push some of the project a few feet in one direction, you're going to alleviate most of those. Will there be conflicts? Probably.
Well, switching hats. Just because the water main runs on the opposite side of the sidewalk doesn't mean there's not a whole pile of service shut-offs on the opposite side that it's gonna be. So no matter what, utility is gonna be an issue, whether it's sewer, water, electric, something, you know. We work around things like this all the time. It's not the end of the world. Now, back to sewer though, I do believe, at least from like the Russell house, maybe even further down, they are primarily on that side of the road. So it would probably be encroaching on their sewer main. I'm not saying right on top of it, but it'll definitely be, they're definitely on that side of the road.
I met with the sewer district manager a few weeks ago, and what we're just waiting for is the next version of the design. And once that's out, I told Chris I'd give that to him, and then I'd also go down to a sewer trustees meeting and explain to them the project from A to B. He seemed to think that with MDOT granting those easements, that we will probably be able to push most of those issues away. And we're talking about a few feet.
Okay. I'm sure that you can overcome any of the obstacles that keep getting thrown at you. But one of the things you might want to push is the fact that it won't be underutilized, because that seems to be some of the concerns as to why is underutilization. And granted, we've got the playgrounds up here and the common, there will be people using it, but there's a lot of folks out there that think it would be underutilized and money that could be spent better elsewhere.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Right now, you don't see many people walking 27. But do you blame them?
But what ones that are there, you see them because they're in the road.
Yes. But I mean, it's dangerous to walk 27. Right?
Yes, it is.
Cars
That's
go.
probably why most people don't.
Yeah.
And I'll take it one step further, because if we're talking like comprehensive plan and things like that, if you want this town to grow, you kind of build for its future. And if you want, I mean, we have all these, I'll use the land trust. We have all these beautiful trails all over the place. Well, a lot of people want to walk when they get here. It's nice to be able to walk from point A to point B. Nobody's walking up and down 27 right now because it's taking your life in your hands. I don't think it'll be utilized immediately the moment it's laid down, but I think in fairly short order, you're gonna see everybody walking out there to get their exercise in the evenings, in the mornings, people jogging, kids walking to school, and it'll be a much, much safer way for them to do so.
Yeah, one of the things that the comp plan is looking at is the existing trails that we do have here, working people walk, working people bike, and how can some of those be connected?
Absolutely. Listen, we all complain at times that takes a lot of money out of the tax rolls. Well, you know what? Let's promote them and get people here that's gonna utilize them. It's the only way we're gonna kind of get our money back, if you wanna look at it that way.
Almost sounds like you were at the last comp meeting.
80% of this is paid for through federal highway dollars.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about the money I'm talking about the money that came out of the tax rolls for land trust.
Right.
You'll get it back if you advertise that we have all these beautiful trails, and they're well kept, and me and my kids use them frequently. I think they're great to have.
Yep.
But advertise them, let's show people that we're here. That's what you want to do. Bring here and hike and bike and whatever you need to do.
As soon as the weather gets good, there's a lot of people that walk.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
You know, everybody pays their federal taxes, and every year one of these federal highway projects gets funded. Why not us?
Right. Because if we don't take it, somebody else is going to.
Oh yeah, it's not like they're just going to pass up and okay, we'll put that money right back in.
Honestly, I think we should, as soon as this one's over, we should start talking about a bike route all the way down to Ocean Point.
Yes, I
because that
agree.
is a miserable place to meet and don't get me wrong, I think it's great for the people that are going out doing the biking, but they are taking their lives in their hands.
Wow.
And not only their lives, but every motorist that tries to get around.
That would be a great project to go around that point.
Yeah, we used to have lots of bike tours coming here, but you hardly ever see them anymore because the road isn't conducive to traveling on bike.
The roads are so crooked, you can't get by them.
But you haven't
So-
seen controversy until you start trying to make a bike path down around Ocean Point.
I'm not even, just make it to Ocean Point. The traffic's slow enough down Ocean Point that you wouldn't even have to do a thing
Right.
around the point itself. But getting from the store, from the lights to Grimes Ave, that can kill somebody.
There's some community planning benefits that come from sidewalks. Some that I think we would benefit from having a sidewalk here. One of those is that if there are sidewalks, it generally feels developed, and developed places attract businesses because businesses don't want to be in areas that are undeveloped because there means no customers. Also, sidewalks will usually have a traffic calming effect. People generally don't speed as much when there's curb there. It just feels like a developed road. As soon as if we are able to pull off the sidewalk project, the next thing we'd want to do is do a speed study and try to bring down that speed. There really doesn't make a lot of common sense for the speed to reduce to what, 25, 30, is it 35 here? Speed back up and then slow back down. That naturally makes you feel like that's an undeveloped area and we want it to feel developed.
Because I mean, it's 30 coming into the common, and then it's 45 after you leave the common, and then the next hill it drops down to 35 again.
Right. I mean, think about it, if you get that to feel developed and it actually starts developed, the nature of Boothbay Harbor starts to expand, and then you actually are producing some economic development.
Anyone on the sidewalk?
I guess I know everything I do.
Public comment, Mike?
Couple questions, probably Jim can answer them. Have you heard any feedback from Sally regarding the proposed ordinance changes from the planning board?
I think there's back and forth between Dan and Sally. I don't think they have them structured into formal ordinance language yet.
And regarding this coming year's budget, has any money been put aside for some possible repair work up on the Industrial Park Road? There are sections of that road that need repair.
We have money in the capital improvement for roads. We haven't specified where that goes. We've got a lot of areas that we'd like to. The industrial parks have always been high, but we're hoping that we eventually could package all of these ideas of industrial park development with maybe a road improvement plan, because there's economy of scale there and we actually can drive down the cost.
Well, once they put the water and the sewer up, it'll be all new anyway.
Yeah, when will that happen? That's the unknown right
Right.
now. And my concern right now is there are areas there that if something doesn't
You're gonna
happen
lose
really
it.
quickly, you'll be down to gravel. You know, there are areas where the asphalt's broken into little chunks. And with the heavy equipment that runs up and down that road, if you don't at least put a skin patch over there to preserve it, it'll be worse.
Okay, we'll look into see what we can do.
Yeah, that road has a bad habit of alligator.
Well, the main reason for that, and Mike knows this as much as anybody, is the road wasn't designed for the weight load of the traffic that it takes. It really should be posted like any other road, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to post your industrial park road. So we don't. You know, if we were to repair that road or go back to the day that was established, then we would probably put a stronger base there and a heavier road.
Are the roads still posted?
Roads are still posted. We expect those to come off next week, if not the very early.
They have smoothed out a lot in the last week.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, we take them down on a case-by-case basis. So if you're on a road that seems like it has dried up, contact Mike, maybe he can pull down a sign. But don't go on the road until you contact Mike, because he might have some good reason to have left it posted.
Just a comment on Industrial Park Road, in 1991, when I purchased property there, that road was unpaved up to Rhinell, and I remember when they constructed that road. Personally, I believe that first section of road was built to a pretty good standard at that time. I remember bringing Phil in, and that road, when you think about it, did not get, it was paved in, I think, 92, and did not get resurfaced until 2001 or 2002, somewhere around there. And that's when they picked up the second half of Industrial Park.
When did the town pick that up? As a town road?
Oh,
It was within the last 10 years. I mean,
I
it's
want to say
not-
2003 or somewhere.
Yeah, it's
I was
not
gonna say,
that-
it was just before I got elected the first time, and that the first time for me was '03.
And that road, from Rhinell up into the rest of the park, that was paved, I think, the year before the town took that road
I
over.
know Neil always claimed that that was built to federal DOT specs, that industrial park.
I don't know.
I would say the lower section was, but.
Yeah, that's what he's always said to me.
And, you know, even if, and no matter what spec it was built to, we don't really have any proof that it was. And if we were to rebuild it, we would take it all up and redo the base.
Even if that was the case, look at our town roads, most of those were built to the spec of the time.
What was the spec of the time? Did they
Depends on
go
when they were
traveled
built.
and throw asphalt
Yeah,
down?
I've seen pictures of 27 down there.
Right after Corduroy.
The old,
It was just after Corduroy.
Wagon wheel packed down?
corridor road.
Sorry.
We haven't,
We found some, I know when we did our most recent road, when we were digging up some of the bad spots, you know, down by Nickerson's place and stuff, you'd be surprised at some of the fill that we pulled out of there. So.
Mm.
No, I wouldn't be surprised
It's
at all.
so I do joke and laugh when we talk about the base of some of our roads. It's amusing.
I think a lot of the roads were just the old like, logging roads, wood roads, and then we eventually threw some gravel down, and eventually threw some asphalt down, and
build them up high enough so the mud didn't
now
come
they're
up
a
through.
road. But I mean, I don't know how many roads that I dig through in this town that there's a road, and then 2 feet down there's another road, and then another 2 feet down there's another road.
Yeah.
So a lot of things have happened over the years, and that's still, even with all those roads in there, there's still no real good base under
Well,
it.
for years, they never paved, they used that, they had that processing thing come in and make all that stuff that they put down on the road, I forget what they call it. It's almost like a reclaim, but it was tar.
The tar and the chip seal.
Chip seal, thank you, that's what I was trying to
I don't know, there was just, the pile was huge when they got done at the public works, and then they'd go out and they'd spread it all over the roads.
The culvert that's just north of the playground, when we were digging out that culvert, there was 2 culverts on top of each other underneath there, and also a split rail. I don't know why a split rail was underneath the road, but we took it out, filled it in. So,
How is that, I haven't been back down Back River, has that alleviated that thrashing in the spring like it's been every other year?
It had a little bit in
Nothing like
it
it
a couple
was.
of weeks ago, but no, not
It's-
even
Yeah, it
close.
wasn't a launch pad like it's been in past
No.
years.
it's weathering well, but I mean, the true test is, 7 to 10 years.
Right.
Anything else, Mike?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to review the warrants and sign them.
Second.
All those in favor? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?